welcome to Smart Talk, a weekly series produced by Beyond Belief Sobriety that focuses on the people and tools of smart recovery. My co-host for the series is Arthur Shenker over here. He is the National Outreach Liason for Smart Recovery. He is also a meeting facilitator with many years of experience, and it's always a lot of fun to talk with him. Today, Arthur and I will be talking about two tools in the SMART toolbox, and they seem like they are similar, but I think that we'll find that there's some significant differences. Those tools being the cost-benefit analysis and the risk-reward analysis. But before we get into that, let's check in with Arthur, take a look at what went on last week, and talk about any of the feedback we received. So, Arthur, how you doing?
I'm good. Good to see you again.
And it's always good to see you.
Always good to be here. Yeah.
I know. I love this. This has been, to be honest with you, this series, Smart Talk, I think is just the most favorite thing I've done since I've been podcasting since 2015. Can you believe that? And I think the reason I like it so much is because it's new for me. I'm learning and I like what I'm learning, and I'm trying my best to implement this in my life, and it's making a difference. I'll talk to you a little bit about it, but because of one of these episodes, I was invited to a SMART meeting in Austin that a listener was telling me about, and I went to that, and I just loved it, and this is just so neat to be able to do this, get feedback from people in the SMART community and people who are just learning about SMART. And it's just really cool. So thank you for doing this.
And you'll find that as you go to different facilitators meetings, you're going to find that different facilitators have different styles. They may use different techniques. For instance, Joe Gerstein, the founding president, who we've had on the show, and I have done groups together. And he may see something and say something because of the way he sees it, and I see something a little bit different, and I present it a little bit different way. Does that mean that one of us is wrong? No, because we both get to the same bottom line. It's just a question of maybe he might see something and present it a little bit more clinically than I do.
Yeah, I
may be a little bit more of a layman type. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, he's a guy who was a Harvard professor of medicine, and an MD. Me, I ran a corporation, but it doesn't make me an expert in a medical type field or clinical. So there you'll see differences. So as you go around and you experience different facilitators, they will explain things a little bit differently, and in the way they conduct their meetings may be a little bit different, each one. So and it's good to get that variety. That diversity is really good.
It really is, and like you say, there's no good or bad, and also it's the people in the meeting that make it. The facilitator is important, but it's the people in the meeting and what they do and what they have to say that
we just keep it going.
Yeah.
We just keep it going.
Yeah. So, but I liked this meeting in Austin. I liked the people. I liked the meeting that I went to, your meeting too. So I'm going to start adding more of these to my schedule now.
Now I'm going to, and I'm going to go out on a limb here a little bit, because if we can discuss something that happened in two of my meetings this last week, before we get to what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
A lot of times when I'm doing a check-in, we talk about motivation and what motivated you to come to this meeting. And from two different people, two totally separate people, two different meetings, I heard, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And this is going to lead us really into what we want to talk about today, because I'm thinking that I can be sick and tired of just opening my door and getting the mail.
Right.
I can be sick and tired of doing this. It really doesn't tell me anything.
Right.
It doesn't express really what went wrong. What is it? Yeah. And so I had to use one of our main tool is called motivational interviewing, and get down to a point where I could get these two different people on two different meetings to start talking about what was it about their drug of choice that made them sick and tired. Was it, like, for instance, let's use alcohol now for the example. Is it drinking the alcohol that you're sick and tired of, or is it what the alcohol caused?
Right.
When you drank it.
Right.
Difference there.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, and what we wanted to get to is, what did the alcohol cause for you to get to a point where you could say that?
See, you pick up on that, and I don't know if I would have that. I would say, "Oh, sick and tired of being sick and tired," and leave it at that. But you're picking up on it. No, there's more to the story here that I need to understand. Sick and tired of being sick and tired doesn't really tell me. Oh, you're right. It really doesn't, does it?
No, I know it's something that you hear quite a bit in other programs, but it doesn't get to a
right
specific as to what is it that makes you start thinking that way.
Right. Yeah, that's so cool, Arthur.
And then what do you do about it once you get there? But what we want to do is, because when we find those things out, that's when we can start presenting different tools to deal with what those causes are, what happened, et cetera, so on.
Yeah. So God, we'll have to do the motivational interviewing episode sometime, because you rely on that heavily, don't you?
I would say that the bottom line is, as many tools as we have, the best tool that I use, and it's not really a tool, it's a technique.
Okay.
Let's kind of separate it, because it really is a technique. It's not so much as a tool.
Yeah.
But it's probably the best technique that we have as facilitators to get the other people to start speaking and to start realizing really for themselves what's happening and what they've been through and where they want to go. If I just say, what are your goals? You can tell me. Now I have to, how do you plan to attain those goals? What do we need to do? What has to be done? It goes on and on and on, but guess who's the one coming up with the answers?
The person that the person in the meeting you're talking to, right? That you're interviewing. Yeah.
But you're kind of interviewing. It's almost like being a reporter.
Yeah.
You're digging for that story.
Yeah.
And once that comes out, it's like it could be an epiphany for people.
Yeah.
To realize these things.
It just blows me away that you can do this, and it also speaks a lot for you, Arthur, that you obviously care about people. You're doing this really out of a lot of caring for the person to try to so they can get the most out of this. And it's pretty amazing to watch. I'm very impressed by what you do. To be honest with you,
a lot of times, but the main thing when you do that is, one is ask permission. Can I ask you some questions? Do you mind if we do this? Get their permission to do that. And then the second thing is that, you're hearing what I'm saying is kind of challenging. I will never challenge a person about being a person.
Right.
I will never challenge them as a person, but I may challenge their thinking. Because that's the key to smart recovery, is reframing and clarifying the thought process.
Do they have meetings that are just for facilitators to talk with each other, to share ideas and compare notes? Mm-hmm. I would think so. I think that would be a really good idea, because I would learn a lot from just talking to you about how you facilitate.
Well, there are smart managers meetings. And they're 3 days a week. We have them on 3 different nights. I usually attend 2 of them.
Okay.
And it's really, you find some newer facilitators there, or people come up with problems or things that they experienced in their meeting, and ask other facilitators what would they have done, or how would they have handled this situation. And there's all kinds of situations that could come up.
I bet. Yeah. This is so exciting to me. I can't tell
Because
you.
what I just described, I brought up at one of those meetings. I already knew what I was going to do and did it, but I wanted to see what the other people, because a lot of them were fairly new at doing this, and wanted to see where they were going to take it, and 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 get that discussion going there about that.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's just as an example.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to delay getting
And by the
into
way, you qualify. By the way, you qualify to go to those meetings. You are a trained facilitator.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I am. I'm still learning this thing though. I'm a little embarrassed sometimes to tell people, but they were asking me like when I went to the meeting in Austin. First, they said, "Can I ask you how long has it been since your last drink or whatever?" And I told them 34 years, and and then I told them I was new to Smart, and I am, but I also know a lot about it too. And I later told them, said, "Yeah, I've taken the facilitator training. I've read the handbook. I have done a lot of research." But I haven't really just done a lot of meetings, So I've kind of done it backwards. It's like I did most people will probably go to a lot of meetings and then do that stuff. And I did all that stuff up front, kind of learning about it.
And you're not going to find a lot of people that are just going to meetings and have 34 years of recovery. Way before then, we like to see them go on and just live.
I know. But I think part of my living my balanced life is being part of this. I want to do this. I love this. It helps me, and I like to see other people get helped too. So for that, I think that's what I like. That's what I enjoy. About all of this. I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot of really important tools that just help me in my everyday life, regardless of how long I've not drank. I'm not in any danger of going out drinking. I'm fine with that. But I can live a much better, happier, balanced life using these tools. Not having to fret about stuff that.
Well, a lot of our tools you could use in situations in everyday life, which we're going to talk about two of them today, where it has nothing to do with recovery. It has absolutely nothing to do with recovery. As a matter of fact, you'll hear both these on national news shows.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Yep. Okay, let's do some real quick before we get into the subject matter. Go through some of the comments from last week. The comments have been really very good, positive for the most part. The comments from the last YouTube video we did on cognitive distortions, people did enjoy that. Shelly wrote that she loves this platform and she appreciates the video. One of the people, her name is Miss Missy on YouTube. She actually went to one of your meetings that she found from this series. And then I had a couple of comments, and we've had this happen before, of people who don't like my comparing this to other programs. So I'm just going to stop doing that. And, I just explained that, you're right. Smart stands on its own. It's something that's unique and it's valuable and it stands on its own. There's no need to compare it and contrast it with something else. Maybe someday I might want to do that. I have a right to do that if I want to, but I'm not going to do that for this series. It's not material. It's really not.
Well, in all fairness, to those people, I want them to understand that, we are proponents of anything that
absolutely
works.
It really
works. And a good 30 to 35% of the people that come to our meetings, and I would say that's an average. So that means more people in some meetings go to both a 12-step program and Smart Recovery, and some less, in other meetings. But we are absolutely A-okay with whatever you find that can help you move forward in your recovery. We are A-okay with. It could be therapy.
Sure.
It could be outpatient. It could be living going to a sober home and living there for your transitional housing. It could be medically assisted treatments.
Yep.
It could be any of the above, or a combination of all of the above.
Yep.
And
that's my personal philosophy too.
Yeah.
I totally believe that. And that is exactly, I also took the training to become a certified peer specialist in Missouri. And it's very similar to this. And, I believe what I have learned from my own experience and from what I've been and training I've taken is it's important to meet people where they are and let people define their own goals and their own recovery and just help them get there through whatever means works for them. And it's going to be different for everybody. So yeah, enough said on that. But I do appreciate the comments that people had to say, and I'll watch myself on that. But someday I might do a comparing video.
Well, but here, let me put it this way: if when you really put down to it, there are differences.
There are
from all different programs. For instance, there's people that may want to go to Life Ring. They may want to go to SOS. They may want to go Women in Sobriety. They may want to go to Celebrate Sobriety. They may want to go to Dharma or Refuge.
Maybe it might be a nice idea to have little videos to say, what are these? What are these things?
So if there weren't differences, they wouldn't have different names.
Exactly.
It's just a question that.
And there's differences within all these things too. There's differences in one smart meeting to the next and everything. So anyway, but it's right. And
the main thing is that we don't want to in any way, shape, or form bash or say negatives about other programs. No. That doesn't mean that there aren't differences.
Right. Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that they're bad differences.
Exactly.
It just means
there's differences. Exactly.
Right. I mean, if I go out and play golf, I can assure you, if I'm with 3 other people, you're going to see 4, including your own, 4 different swings to get the ball out into the fairway. Does that make one bad and one worse than the other? No. If it works, it works.
Well, maybe we should just get right into it. So, I have gotten some really nice comments from people. That's the best thing about doing this has been hearing from the people who are listening to the audio podcast and watching the videos. And I hope to get more of that. So y'all that are watching this or listening to this in the future as it becomes an audio podcast, send us an email, make a comment. I love to hear from you. So let's get into it. We've got these 2 tools. We've got cost benefit analysis and risk reward analysis. So what's the deal?
Well, that's putting the right words in, isn't it? As John takes his glass and takes a drink. Just kidding, John.
Now it's time for me to sit back and let you do the work.
Thank you. Let me see if I can get all this gray hair or the brain cells working. Actually, the cost, a lot of people, when they come into a smart recovery, that one of the tools that really changes the way they view their own life and the way they see things and the way that they get this epiphany that while moving forward is by doing something called the cost benefit analysis. Now, when it's put up, somebody, and I'm not going to say who it is, but somebody decided in smart recovery that the thing that we should put on first it's a 4 square, meaning that there's 4 quadrants. Okay, top left quadrant in a cost benefit analysis basically says the benefits of using. Now, I don't want to say drinking. I don't want to say drugging.
Right.
Because it could be any number of different maladaptive behaviors. It could be over shopping. It could be over working out. It could be gambling. It could be it could be smoking. It could be any number of things. It's not always alcohol or drugs. They may be the more prevalent, but you have all of them. So they put up the benefits. Now, the benefits, when you think about it, is if there weren't benefits, people wouldn't be doing it. If they didn't see something that it did for them in some positive way, they wouldn't do it.
Right.
Okay. Second quadrant to the right of that are the costs of doing this, whatever it is. Okay. And that list, when we start making that cost list, those are actual things that have happened to you, that consequences that you have personally had happen, and you start listing those. Now, what we usually find is when we do that list, that list doubles or triples the benefits.
Oh yeah, I can think about it already immediately. whatever benefits you got from drinking compared to the cost. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm going to go much further into this in a second. You'll see where I'm going to go. The left bottom quadrant is the benefits of not using.
Right.
I'm sorry, the cost of not using.
Okay.
The cost of not using. And then you go to the right side, the benefits of not using.
Okay.
Okay. Now, when we really look at all these things, all those things that become costs of using can switch around, and we can bring back, like, instead of having DUIs, we don't have to get another DUI if we stop using. So now they become reward or benefits of not using. So we can almost reverse a lot of those things. I lost the trust. My trust has been gone, compromised. The integrity, relationships have been compromised. My freedom because of DUIs. I could go on and on and on with the different variant, because it's what an individual, what their particular costs are.
Right.
But those can reverse themselves when you're not using.
Right. So the benefit could be from not getting those things. You mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Now we want to go back to it. Now we want to go back up to that top left quadrant again and say, now, are these benefits of using, the benefits, are they long-term benefits or are they short-term benefits? And what do you think they are?
The benefits, probably short-term.
Short-term. Now, how about the costs?
The cost can be long-term for sure.
Okay. And then how about the cost of not using?
The cost of not using can be long-term. They could be short-term.
It could be either one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. But then the benefits of not using.
Those can be, that's the benefits of not using are definitely long-term.
Are definitely long-term. So
isn't that interesting? The benefits of using are short. The benefits of not using are long.
Yeah. So, but now let's look at it. Now let's take that one step further. I think another word should be added. Okay. It's not in there, but when I do it myself with somebody or with the group, in a group setting, I actually add a word and I say perceived benefits of using.
Perceived benefits of, because they're not like really benefits. You're saying
that your perception is that they're going to be benefits,
right?
But what's it end up giving you?
Yeah,
the cost,
right? Exactly.
Okay, so it's really perceived, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. To give you an example, I was dealing in a group where they were clients in a facility, and there was a lady that was in there that had a period of sobriety and had a relapse, and then it ended up checking herself back into a facility. So I asked her, I said, when you had that relapse, what were you searching for? What was it that you were looking for? What was the benefit? What was the benefit you were looking for? She says, I was looking for that euphoria I once felt.
Yeah.
I then did something that's just very unusual, because we don't usually ask closed-end questions. We don't ask yes or no. But this kind of led that this was necessary, and my instinct said it was necessary to do it this way. I said, did you find that euphoria? The answer was no. I said, what did you find? Went right back to the open end.
Yeah.
She says, I found all these things that it cost me, and look where I am.
Wow.
So that's why I like to use that word perceived. She was looking for something that she never found.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So now, I also think that the name of it is cost benefit. Right. So even though on our website it shows benefits cost, It's called cost benefit.
Right.
So I actually believe in most instances the cost is going to be that top left quadrant.
Yeah. Do you think it matters which one you look at first?
I think it does. Now keep in mind, I'm going to have people that will disagree with me, and that's okay. I don't mind that because it's the way I look at it, and the way and the way I look at it is that what I find is so many people when they go to use their drug of choice or whatever it is they're doing, whatever the activity is or whatever the um, uh, behavior is, that the first thing they're looking at are the benefits, and what I want them to see are the costs. I want them to think of the costs first. And if they think that it's going to cause this, and this that are all negative to happen, maybe that might help them make a decision not to do it.
Yeah. I think it would depend what stage of change you're in as to how you would look at it.
It could be, but when most people, I would think when a lot of people, I don't want to say most, I don't really know, but when I would think that a good number of people do not look at what this is going to cost me. They look at what the reward they're going to get out of it or the benefit. I'm going to escape something I don't want to feel. I'm going to numb myself.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to be socially
for sure.
More,
especially if it's like an urge.
Right.
That's because that's exactly what you're thinking about. In fact, that was in my early days of quitting. When I was thinking about wanting to use, it was because I wanted to shut my brain down. I wanted to shut my brain off. And that's a sure way of doing it.
Right. So when you look at, so I like people to think now, if we take that and go into the risk reward. Now, remember I said that when we were talking about that person said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Okay. That's why I said it could lead right into this. Because when we start digging a little bit and asking those questions, what was it that gets you to this point where you feel like you're done?
Right.
What are they coming up with? They're coming up with the cost of using. That what you're trying to get out of them is, what were those consequences? What were those things that got you to a point where you just don't want to do this anymore? It's not that you're just tired of drinking.
Right.
You're tired of what the drinking has caused you.
Right. You might have all these specific things that have happened to you because of your drinking that are giving you this overwhelming feeling of just being done with it. But it's important to understand what all those costs are.
Right. And when we write those things down and we actually see them in writing, when we actually take a pen or a piece of pencil and paper and put it to paper and you start writing these things down, it has a bigger effect than just hearing us talk about it.
It does. There's something magic about that. Tell me this, and this probably doesn't even matter. It's probably a dumb question, but do you think there's a difference between actually writing something out and putting it on a computer, typing it out on a computer?
No, I don't. No, you can put it on a computer too, because you're concentrating, you're typing it in, and
you're thinking about it, right? Okay,
right, exactly.
Kind of a silly question, but it's kind of like I've given that thought before, because now I type everything now, but there was once a time, because I'm old enough, when I just wrote stuff,
Well, but it's funny because when I'm dealing with a lot of times, not in the regular meeting, but with the inpatient, because they have their notebooks there because they're used to, because it's a group. For them, it's a group.
Right.
When we do our meetings. So I say, do you have a blank piece of paper? Here, I want you to do this. I want you to put this. So as we talk about this, I want you to write these things down, because they don't have a computer in front of them.
Right.
With me, it's like I learned how to type when I was very young. But now I'm back to where I have to look at the keyboard. I know where most of them are, but I still have to look. So you're concentrating on writing, each letter or each number. And then it doesn't always print the one. So now you have to look up to make sure it's printing it. So it's, and it's not misspelled or whatever. You could, but the point is that when you write it down and your concentration is going to that, and then you have something visual to look at.
It makes a big difference.
It makes a difference.
It really does. Yeah.
Maybe with some people it doesn't, but some people I think it does.
Yep.
Okay. Now let's get into the other part. Now, risk reward.
Okay.
Okay, that's a little bit different now. Okay, and I actually do more risk reward now than I do cost benefit, and there's a reason for that. I had a lady that was coming to one of my groups, and I was doing a group early in the morning on a Wednesday morning. I also did a Thursday evening group. I still do the two, but this was back when it was in person. This was when it was face to face. And I asked her, I said, why don't I ever see you on Thursday night? She says, when I drive at night, I might hit somebody. I could hit the curb. I don't see real well. It's hard for me to park. She was coming up with every reason not to drive at night. Now, she didn't necessarily experience any of those things, but those were the things she was putting at risk.
Okay.
Right? Boom, bingo. Light bulb went off in my head. That not only maybe do we want to explore with people what has happened, but if they continue on, what could happen that hasn't happened yet.
Yep.
Risks involved.
Yeah, and that is different for sure.
And it's totally different. So on the risk reward analysis that is on the website, it's not in the toolbox. It's in a different locations under articles and essays when you scroll down, and it explains it. The top left quadrant are the risks.
Risk of using.
The risks of using. Now, when you do that list, that even becomes bigger than the cost list. Because you're not only talking about the actual costs, now you're adding to it, well, just because the guy next to you had a DUI doesn't mean you haven't had it. Doesn't mean you've had one. Right. But it means that you might be in jeopardy of getting one if you continue drinking and driving. Because that another person may have suffered a cirrhosis of the liver, or the liver enzymes going up, doesn't mean you've got there yet, but you could get there. If you're doing an amphetamine, doesn't mean that your blood pressure is off the charts yet, or your heart is in jeopardy, but it could happen. So you add these different risks to it. Now that list gets really long. Now, when you get to the reward side, the rewards of the using, I don't think are much different than the benefits of using.
No.
But again, add that word, perceived rewards.
Perceived reward. Yeah.
And when we, so again, because the rewards aren't necessarily what we would like them to be, because the bottom line is the next day, how many times have you heard, John, in your years of being around, that people went out, they used whatever it was they were doing, and the next day you hear, I have the regrets, I have remorse, I have shame. Well, those definitely cannot be benefits of using or rewards of using, right?
Right.
They actually go back into the cost column.
Yep.
You're risking feeling this negative stuff.
Yep.
But you're doing it thinking there's a reward to it. So you see how this psychologically can really take you moving back and forth. Now, it's funny when I say that you can use these things in real life. Now, again, you go back to the other two quadrants in the risk. What are the risks of not using? Well, they're pretty much the same as the cost of not using. You might lose some friends, or maybe some social events that you would normally have been at where you got loaded or something. There might be some medical issues that are still going on. There might be some legal issues that are still going on. That could be on either one of those two exercises. But again, you can still break it down to long-term, short-term, just like we did before. Okay. Now, and then when you get to the rewards of not using, again, all the risks, the things that haven't happened may not happen ever, obviously, and the things that have happened don't have to happen again. So that basically stays the same. Okay, now, and when I say I've heard this on national news stories, I've heard people get on and say, and they kind of mix the two together. I've heard the Secretary of State say once that we did a risk-benefit analysis for this particular operation we did or something. So he kind of put the two of them together. But you can use this in everyday life. I'm going to leave. I have a job. I'm thinking of leaving my job. What would be the cost of leaving that job? What would be the benefits of leaving that job? What would be the cost of getting the new job? What would be the benefits of getting the new job? So you can actually do this when you plan a business. You put down the possible costs and the upside, the benefits of this. So you're doing an analysis of something that for a business. So this is because these things can be used in everyday life. I want to sell my home. Is what's the cost of selling my home? What's the benefit of selling? What's going to be the new one, et cetera, so on. What's that going to cost me? What's the benefits of going and doing that? Want to move? Again, you can use these things in real life. They have nothing to do with
right. Were
recovery.
Were these tools created as part of cognitive behavioral therapy for therapists to use and then adapted by SMART, or are these specifically SMART tools that are using ideas from cognitive behavioral therapy?
Boy, you're asking me a question that I'm usually not lost for words.
Okay.
Yeah, I cannot give you that answer.
Okay.
I really don't know.
Okay.
My guess is that when you're asking motivational interviewing questions, you're coming out with costs and benefits.
Right. Okay.
Okay. What again? If I'm saying when we go back to that original thing we were talking about,
right? And
I want to break down about why are you sick and tired, right? What caused you to be sick and tired? Would that be part of cognitive behavioral therapy? Absolutely. Because you're now getting the people to start thinking about this.
Right.
How can your thinking change so that doesn't exist anymore? Meaning that if you can eliminate that, if you can eliminate them using by showing them and pointing out and letting them figure out themselves what those costs are, that's going to change their thought process. CBT. Now, which one all came first? I can't really give you the answer to that.
Okay.
But yeah, I think they all work hand in hand.
Okay.
Obviously, but it goes right back to actually REBT, rational motive behavioral therapy.
Okay. I talked to you about this once before, but when I took the peer training for Missouri, a lot of the stuff that I learned in that is very, very similar to this, what we're going through today. And a lot of the SMART tools is very similar to what they taught us in our peer support training.
Mm-hmm.
I just find that kind of interesting because it's the science, isn't it? Because it's science.
It is.
It's the current science.
But it's more than science. It's actually, you don't have to be a scientific genius
right
to do this.
Right.
This is, if you really.
I've been making lists all my life too.
This is my personal, This is my personal opinion. This is common sense.
It is. Yeah, I've done this throughout my life. Actually, I've made lists like what's good about this or bad about this. I didn't do it about my drinking and stuff like that, but yeah.
So, but if you really sit down, like for instance, if I have somebody that walks in and comes into the room, and they said, I had this thought that it would be nice to take a drink. Just using the alcohol as the example this time. And it actually got to a point where it's beyond the thought, maybe even an urge. That's where you're really feeling it.
Yeah.
It's not just a thought, but now it's manifesting itself in a physical way.
Right.
And they don't do it. They end up not doing it. They don't act on it. And I may ask, well, why didn't you act on it? And they may come up with all kinds of things that went through their mind that I've been asked to leave my home because of drinking. My job has been in jeopardy in the past. And all of a sudden, they're coming up with all these different thoughts as to why not to do this. And I may say, well, do you know what tools you were using? And the answer is no.
Right.
And then I would point out, well, what you just did was your hierarchy of values, what was important to you that you didn't want to jeopardize, a cost benefit analysis or a risk reward analysis of what it could cost you or what are the risks of doing it, and you discounted the positives from it. You totally were able to say the rewards or the benefits just do not make it enough of a reason to go ahead and act on it, that the costs gave you that better way of not doing it. But they don't realize that they're doing these tools. It's just a natural way of, a new way of thinking. I don't know. Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense.
So it's common sense. It's like when you go to a street corner, if you don't look to the left or the right, you have a good chance of getting hit by a bus.
Right.
When you cross the street,
right.
Or a car. So that's common sense.
I was just kind of thinking to myself about the differences between the two, the risk reward and the cost benefit analysis. And I was kind of wondering to myself if the risk reward analysis would be more something that you would use if you're even like managing your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and also dealing with urges. And then the cost benefit analysis might be more like building motivation.
Okay, the cost benefit is definitely used for the building the motivation in early recovery. Okay, because when I talk about, and I'm dealing with people coming brand new into the room for a meeting, or people that might be clients in a facility, is when I get to that, when we talk about motivation, I may ask them from 0 to 10, what was your motivation 6 months ago to want to make changes in your life and maybe change that behavior? Now, if I take them back far enough, the answer is usually either 2 or 3. Now, they're usually still using at that time.
Yeah.
Right? So I sometimes ask them, why so high? Because if they're really using, the answer is 0.
Right.
They didn't want to make any changes. They're not even thinking of making changes.
Right.
Now, if you ask them today, what is that motivation? 0 to 10. Now you hear that the average is 7.5 to 8, because people are still a little bit hesitant about how far they want to go. They're still a little, because their life has been surrounded with using. That part of their daily lifestyle has been using. We sometimes hear with inpatients, we hear more like the 9 and 10s, because they're in a real protected area.
Right.
They have this brick wall behind me all around them.
Right. Exactly.
So they're in a protected area. Now, when I ask this, what happened? What was it that actually caused you to be motivated to come to get help? That's where you get into the costs. Here's what it cost me. So it's negative motivation to get you going, I think.
Yeah.
Right? It's that negative stuff that happened. Now, what happens once you start, and you can build on that, right?
Right.
Okay. So what happens when you're now into a recovery?
Right. Then you're wanting to look more, I guess, at the benefits are motivating you. The benefits are motivating you more so than the cost.
Well, what you see is, here's what you see all of a sudden. One, you can remember those things that cost you.
Right.
Which helps you maintain that motivation.
Right.
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 And now you can see things happening in a positive way, that all of a sudden my family trusts me again, and my job's no longer in jeopardy. I don't have to worry about a DUI. I have that freedom. Now it's positive stuff that builds the motivation to continue.
A little bulb went off in my head when you said that. You said that now you remember, now you know what the costs are. You remember the cost. What I find interesting about that statement was there was a time when we didn't. There was a time when we couldn't bring that into the forefront of our mind.
We didn't want to.
I know. So that's a big difference when you move from that stage of putting the cost out of your mind and moving to where they're in your mind. You know what they are. You're more now using the word rational about the idea of using and what would happen. That's a big difference. That's a fundamental change that I don't think that, like, when it happens, that maybe, I don't think I recognized it when it happened, but there was a certain period of time, you know, it was probably like a transition. Maybe it was, you know, bumpy road here and there, but eventually you get to this place where, wow, I know that that's bad for me. You know, I know I get bad things happen, and that's just kind of part of your understanding.
Right. So here, you know, even though you're 34 years that you haven't drank since you had that behavior, here you're doing something today, taking the peer support, becoming a peer support specialist that has to build on that motivation to continue on that journey.
Yep. For me, it's...
Yeah, would you have even thought about doing that when you were drinking?
I know, you're right. You're right. See, when I started into recovery, I started learning. I started learning new things, and I like learning new things, and it's still happening to me. It's still part of my life, and this is all new to me. And when I took the peer support training, that was new to me. And these are, what's cool about it is they're things that help me personally, even though I might not be struggling with drink or not drink, they're still helping me. And hopefully I can help other people, you know? So it's part of what I like about life, you know, is doing that. So
now, you know, in Smart Recovery, one of the things that we don't do, we want to stay in the present moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay. So we don't dwell in the past, but there is that element that if we recognize those consequences that have happened because of our behavior and those things that we put at risk in our behavior, like, that helps us move into a different realm. Now, it doesn't mean we have to dwell on that, okay, because we're moving forward now.
That's really a healthy way to live. And it's something that I need to get better at, is just learning to not dwell on the past. I had, you know, and stay where I'm at now and enjoy where I'm at now and focus on where I'm at now. I mean, there's some benefits that I don't want to forget, I guess, what I've learned from the past, but.
Well, that's the whole point, that the past, like, for instance, if somebody has a lapse or a relapse, we look at it as a learning experience. Now, again, in Smart Recovery, we don't use any stigmatizing language, and we don't make any judgment calls on anybody. So when somebody walks in, and that's what helps them really be honest in our meetings, is that they're not afraid of being told they're back to day one.
Yeah.
That they're not starting over, because we use the stage of change. We don't use,
there is no
calendar.
Right.
So there's no day one again, and they're able to be more honest. But we look at it that, let's see why that happened, and let's do one of our other tools, like those ABCs that we've talked about in past shows, and find out what that activating event was. Find out what those beliefs were about it. Find out what the consequences and how we can dispute those unhealthy or unhelpful beliefs and make a new belief about it all. So, you know, an effective new way of thinking. So, you know, but so we can learn from the past, but if all we do is dwell in it, we can't move forward. So Jack Trempe, who was the creator of Rational Recovery and one of the co-founders of Smart, with Joe, you know, he had a picture of a guy holding an anchor or a chain, and it's over his shoulder like this, and he's trudging like this. And at the end of that chain was an anchor, and until he was able to let go of that chain, he couldn't move forward.
Right.
He was anchored.
By the way, do you know what Jack is up to nowadays?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Last time I talked to Jack Trempe happened to be about 5 years ago, or so, about 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that was the last time I actually talked to him. I don't know that the rational recovery is up and going right now. I haven't really looked, but I don't know if it is or isn't.
Okay.
But that was what, when Jack developed that in the 80s. A very bright guy.
Yeah.
And when he and Joe got together, they didn't call it SMART at the beginning. It was just rational recovery.
Right.
But they introduced more tools.
Yeah.
The only two tools I remember we used back in rational recovery days, because I was facilitating rational recovery groups, were the ABCs and something called addictive voice recognition technique, AVRT. Everything's an acronym, isn't
it?
I know, yeah. And of course we created in SMART. Now it became that's become what they call our disarm tool.
Yeah.
Which is what destructive imaging and self-awareness talk and refusal method. I mean, it's got a really long.
I know. But, speaking of acronyms, when I was listening to the episode with Joe Gerstein, I thought it was really interesting that SMART, the acronym, came later. That they called it SMART Recovery, then figured out what SMART meant later.
It meant, right? Yeah, and they put a name to it. Now, of course, with Joe, and this is the really funny part, because Joe being from Boston,
yeah,
the R's are kind of silent.
Right.
So it took him over 10 years to figure out you don't say smart, you say smart.
Right.
So now he can say smart, but everything else is still like Harvard,
right?
Or something like that, or Pak,
yeah,
Pak your cock,
yeah.
So it's funny that, but you're right. It was a name given that had no breakdown.
Right. Isn't that funny? Yeah. It's so
now,
cool.
And I'll tell you something else too. When this all started, there was the first pillar. The first pillar we had was not motivation.
What was it?
It was dealing with urges and cravings. There was no living a balanced lifestyle.
No.
It was managing your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors.
Those two things.
Interesting.
Very interesting. I love this stuff. I just love this so much. And what's so cool too about it is, it's SMART is well established now, as Joe mentioned. It's well established as a peer, as a support,
a mutual peer support group.
Yeah, mutual aid support.
Mutual aid peer support group.
It's well established, but it's still relatively new that the people who started this thing are still around. And that's just like that's pretty cool that you can talk to these people and understand, how this stuff came about. Even the father of cognitive behavioral therapy, he just passed away here. Just
November 1st, I believe.
Wow.
This last year. Yeah. And what's really funny is, not funny, but what's really I'm not even sure what the word to use.
Interesting.
Interesting is a good word, because what's really interesting is that he had just gotten done doing a book.
Yeah.
Collaborating with a fellow named Dr. Bruce Lees, who's at Kansas University, University of Kansas in Lawrence, who happens to be a SMART recovery facilitator, who happens to be a person that trains, has a license to train like facilitators right there.
Wow.
At the university. He's a professor, a psychologist, and he and Aaron Beck,
they collaborated
on that last book that Aaron Beck was part of.
Amazing.
And it just came out, I think, the month before, or just finished like a couple of months before he died. So and Bruce has meetings that I think are evenings. I think they're online. So you're talking about now. Here's a college professor, psychologist, who runs SMART meetings.
Yeah. I just love this. I just love this stuff. And you're a treasure too, Arthur. Thank you so much for doing this. I mean, I just can't tell you, this has made a difference in my life, and definitely in the lives of the people listening to this podcast. And, as I told you before we started recording, it's not like you get emails like every time you put out an episode, but I think pretty much every time that we've put out a Smart Talk episode, I've gotten an email or a comment. And that's not typical. And they're positive overwhelmingly. So that just tells me something. This is something that's
now. I want to say this because this is really significant. I've had people that have said to me, and I'm sure other facilitators have had the same thing said to them. Thank you for doing what you do.
Yeah, I know.
You've been, you have done this for me. Da, 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 da. And the bottom line is, we did was plant a seed.
Yeah.
All we did was show them a way to do it for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's.
But you're good at it. You're good at doing that. That's the thing.
Nice to hear it sometimes.
Yeah.
It's nice to hear it, but at the same time,
I know what you're saying. The people are doing the work.
They're the ones doing the work.
They are.
They're the ones. And you know what? You cannot be there beside them.
No.
I had a lady that I know that has come to the meetings, and she had a incident where everything around her house was breaking down at the same time. It was like a sewer line broke, and the tire had a flat tire, in the car, and all this. And where she would have usually taken a drink, she didn't. She handled business and took care of it. But I remember her saying in the meeting, I am so thankful for the treatment center that I have gone to, and so thankful for hearing things here in this meeting. And that if it wasn't for any of those, I would have drank. I would have drank. And my answer, I looked at her and I said, was the treatment center sitting beside you when this happened? He answered, no. I said, was I sitting beside you when this happened? No. I said, you made the decision. You made the choice. You may have learned something.
And you know what? That's important to know and recognize too. It really is.
That no one else was there to influence her thought.
Yep.
It was her that made that decision right then and there.
And that's the whole point, is that people can become empowered, to live their balanced lives.
That is the point, is they are empowered.
They are empowered.
When she made that decision to say and not drink, what do you think that did to her motivation?
It helped build her motivation.
It built her. Now, what do you think it did for managing her thoughts, feelings, and behaviors?
Well, it helps with that too. So,
of course.
Yeah.
So dealing with one item in the 4 pillars influenced two others. They all work together.
Well, this has been another great episode. Is there anything that we didn't cover about one of those tools that you want to mention before we end this?
Again, the only thing I would like to see them do, and I said this before, is the risks are not only what it cost you, but things that haven't cost you, but maybe somebody else has experienced it, but you haven't yet you're eligible to experience it, right? Costs or actual costs.
Okay.
But I would like to change add a word on the other side, a perceived benefit or perceived reward, because what they think is going to be good for them.
I hear you. I agree with you.
So
I totally agree with you, because it's not
the costs are real.
The costs are real, but the benefits and the rewards are not.
No, not necessarily. They could be for a short term, but it's not. But what did they end in? They ended with the cost side.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
Yep.
You're not looking for a DUI. You're not looking to crash your car. You're not looking to have an overdose and die and have to be brought back with Narcan. You're not looking for these things. Those aren't rewards. Those aren't benefits.
So what I'm doing now, these Smart Talk episodes are being posted as audio podcasts as well. So the Joe Gerstein episode that we recorded on YouTube a couple of weeks ago is coming out this Wednesday on the audio podcast, which will be out on Apple or wherever you download your podcast. And I'll keep doing that with all these episodes, keep posting them as audio and on YouTube. You get a bigger audience that way. And it's just different mediums, which works out well. But something else I'm going to do that I learned from a listener, by the way, who sent me an email, Tyler, is he taught me how I can add timestamps to the YouTube videos, which is really cool. So what if you look at like the last couple episodes, there's little timestamps. You can click on them and you can go to a specific place in the video to see what you're interested in. So like if you want to see, you know, whatever tool we're talking about, you can click on it. It takes you to where you're talking about that. So I'm going to do that with this video and the other videos too for Smart Talk. So
and just to let you know, I happen to know that at least people not only within this country are listening, people out of the country, because I actually had somebody that came on to my meeting Thursday night, this past Thursday night, that said they heard the podcast. They were in Canada. So,
yeah, Tyler is from New Brunswick.
I said, now you're putting me on the spot. Now I had to perform.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thanks again. I did appreciate this very, very much. It's been, all these episodes are fantastic. It's helped me so much, and I know it's helping other people, and it's just a lot of fun to do, and it's always a pleasure to talk with you. So thanks again. I really do appreciate it.
And keep in mind, a lot of these things are the way I view them and the way I see them.
Right.
I find that, again, if you go to different meetings, different facilitators, you might hear a little bit of a difference. Some of them may not have ever used risk reward.
Yep.
Because it's not in the toolbox. It's not in the book. It's further down on a page somewhere.
Well, I'm going to go to that Austin meeting again today, and I'm also going to go to your meeting on Monday. I have to tell someone else there's something else I need to change that I do on Monday to go to that meeting, because I want to do those too. I want to interchange them too every once in a while, because to get a better idea. And there's so much I want to do, Arthur. I mean, God damn, there's so much to do and learn, and so many places I want to go. It's just the time to do it. But yeah, do what you can do.
Just do a best cost benefit analysis and see what's more important to you.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's true.
That's what it's all about.
That's true. All right. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.